So I've just got the spoon shader here, and what I'm going to do is just put in the shape of the underneath of this eye. It's really important to get the shape in first, because if the shape is wrong, then it looks really wrong. So if we put the shape in first, it means that we can tweak it if we need to. I'm just going to go over the top and down to the side here. And in eyes, you've got this nice gradient that comes through. So I'm just putting that in. So I've turned my spoon shade slightly on its side, and I'm just pulling out from that bottom line, that bottom burn. I'm gonna just build. I want to slowly build these layers up. Now, underneath this eye, underneath the top bit of this eye, there's always a dark section. So I want to fill that in quite dark. And I'll probably add a few more layers yet, so it's not quite its darkest. But we need to work on the layers. I'm going to do a little bit of scrumbling just around here, and it just puts like a base layer in for me, and it puts it in quite quickly. So scrumbling is just tiny circular motion. There's a little dark patch there, so I'm just going to put that bit in, and I'm just going to build up. So I'm still scrumbling, so tiny circular motions, like think woolly sheep. And it's just adding those bits in, and it darkens it down quite quickly. I come around here, making sure that I go around that catch light, because it's really important to preserve that catch light. We don't want to go into that at all. So just going to scrumble underneath here, just getting this shape. And there's some shapes in this eye that I need to get in. And I'm going to start with this pupil. Now I've turned my spoon shader upside down, and I've got to be really, really careful that I don't slice into the wood. So my pressure on here is feather soft. And if you think feather soft, it's really, really is light. So turn my spoon shader back over, and I'm shading in with the bottom of the bowl. And just to get this bottom of this pupil in just here. I'm still making sure that I'm going around that catch light. I don't want to go over it. So just gently put in like a little bit of a fuzzy edge around this pupil, because that's what it's got. And I'm going to add a little bit more in here. So I'm still doing tiny circular motions, just building this up. Now there's a little line in here. So what I'm doing is looking at the different lines within the iris and getting the darkest ones in. You can see here, just popping them in there. And over here, and there's some lines in, so I'm going to go get those in. Just going to darken this pupil down a little bit more. Right, so I'm going to come to the inside of this eye here, and I'm just going to go over that dark bit again, because now I've put a bit of burn around the rest of it, next to it. I can see that it needs to be just that little bit darker, so I'm just going to give that an extra layer in there. And I'm just using the bottom of the bowl for that. Now I'm placing my spoon, I've twisted my spoon shader on its side slightly, and I'm starting in the dark part, and I'm going to pull it out. And it just gives that natural gradient. And eyes generally have that natural gradient. So just start in the dark, and I'm pulling down this time just to get some of that fur details in there. Now I don't want to do every single fur line. What I'm doing is I'm just plotting out and putting a base layer into the fur. So what I do is I generally put a flat base layer onto the wood as the base burn. Then I'll add some of the darker shades, so I'll add more layers where it's slightly darker. I don't tend to put fur details in until the very last moment. So now what I'm doing is I've turned my spoon shader on its side slightly, and I'm just making sure that I'm going over where the same, I want to go the same direction as the fur. I get my words right in a minute. So I'm taking it down from the side of this eye, so it's a little bit darker just here. So I'm going over, making sure that I'm going over the line art lines so I can hide them. So I always do my line art lines within the darker areas because that means that I can just hide them within the burn. So I'm just pulling from that darker part of the bottom of the eye into the fur bit. And again, I'm not doing every single fur detail. I'm putting a nice base layer in first, and it is just a flat base layer. And the only analogy that I can sort of bring to that is if you imagine going and painting your kitchen wall, you would put a base coat on first and then you would build up from there with several more coats of paint. And that's basically what I'm doing with pyrography. So I will start with that base layer and then build up the darker layers as I need them in the areas that I need them. So just gently pull in within that fur direction, because that's also a very important factor, is that you make sure that you go the same direction as the fur. Because if I was to go up and down right now, that would look really, really weird and give this cat a really long face. And, it's incredibly important that the direction is correct. Just adding a few more layers in here, just as and when, sort of as I need to build up. I'm still keeping my pressure on my pen really, really light. So even in the darkest areas, I'm still using light pressure. What I tend to do is change my speed. So the darker area, I move a little bit slower and I keep my pen in concentrated areas. And that just helps to build up the burn a little bit faster. Now, where the lighter fur is what I will then go over the wood, surface of the wood quite quickly, because then it's not in a concentrated area and I'm then putting less of a burn on. So as you can see here, it's I'm moving very quickly, and I know this video is sped up a little bit, but I'm still moving quickly even in real time, just to get that lighter burn on there. I'm going to carry on using the bottom of the bowl just to add these layers in here, and that I'm going to pull that out so it gradients out a little bit. So just building up a little bit more where I need to. And by using lots and lots of lighter layers, you've got a lot more control, especially in fur where the tiny differences are. And it's really important to put those tiny differences in to create that realistic look.